There's a story from Chris Lowe out. Some of these details you know, some of them you do not know, about the transition from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer. And we had a chance to spend some time with Kalen, so we've heard some of this, and we knew some of this, and some of it hasn't been said. But Chris Lowe reporting at ESPN.com that Nick Saban told Greg Byrne after the 2022 season that it was getting harder for him, and we need to start evaluating this on a year-to-year basis. So Greg Byrne basically had a year notice that he needs to be prepared for what's going on. Now, we sort of connected the dots on the fact that Jimmy Sexton became Kalen DeBoer's agent about 1 year ago as well, about the same time this conversation would have been happening. The stuff that has not been reported or spoken about publicly that we had all heard behind the scenes is now in print from Chris Lowe. And it's about Nick Saban. First of all, it was after the loss to Michigan, leaving the field at the Rose Bowl. And he talked about, quote, showing your ass, throwing your helmets, and some of the things the players were saying afterwards. Okay. It really upset him because he says that hasn't been what we've been about with our program for 16, 17 years.
Yeah, shocker alert with the layout and the logistics of the Rose Bowl. We talked about this a lot. I left at halftime. We ended up coming back to get you guys later in the day. So I didn't see a lot of that happened on the field. I know you were down there. Did that jump to you? Because there is another side to this story, which we will get to, that I had heard about, months ago.
I didn't notice the throwing of the helmet, but instantly right afterwards when we heard Dallas Turner, basically confetti had not settled to the ground, and he'd already started talking, I'm out of here, I'm going to the NFL. Those are the kind of things that I talked about in our post show that night. And then this is the one you're talking about. He tells Chris Lowe that in every conversation he was having afterwards with his players in individual meetings, it all became about guaranteed playing time next year and how much money you could pay me. And he tells Chris Lowe, and we'd all heard this privately, I think we're going to have a hell of a team coming back. And then all of a sudden, what we built the program on, it's not resonating with these guys anymore.
Yeah, and I thought this was ultimately, people continue to ask me, why do you think Nick Saban's going to retire? This was going to be one of the factors. Back in the day, when Alabama would end the season with a loss, guys were coming in to have exit interviews with Nick Saban, and they were talking about, how can I get better? How can we not end the season with a loss? How can we end the season winning another championship? And this is just today's NIL. Like, if I'm not guaranteed that I am going to play a role on this team, then I can go somewhere else. And if I'm not going to get the NIL that I think I deserve, I can go somewhere else.
Two other things from this Chris Lowe story. You can read the whole thing at ESPN.com, ESPN.com today. Nick Saban apparently reached out to two coaches to get advice about whether he should step down or not. One of them, Bill Parcells.
Second one was surprising, but I guess he had familiarity with Tuscaloosa, right?
The second one was Gene Stallings, which surprised me a little bit that it was Stallings.
Yeah, like I haven't publicly heard from Stallings, and when's the last time?
I occasionally will make a radio interview, but it's been a long, long time.
Yeah, and I think, the house he's got in Jupiter, I think Bill Parcells has got a house in that neighborhood.
That's right, but you got to reach out to Gene, who's on his farm in Texas.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bill, they might have bumped into each other, at the coffee shop down the street.
I found it was interesting who Byrne called instantly after Saban made his announcement. He called 4 former Alabama players, Joe Namath, Mark Ingram, Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith were the 4 players he talked to just to ask advice on how he thought he should handle the situation. And then as Byrne and them talk about that the focus from the get-go was basically DeBoer and Norvell. It wasn't Sark. It wasn't Kirby or Dabo. It wasn't Lane Kiffin.
No,
it was DeBoer and Norvell.
Never, like in a million years, Lane Kiffin wasn't getting this job. I don't think Sarkisian would have left for the Texas job for this job anyway. But yeah, those were the names that we heard, DeBoer and, Mike Norvell kind of pulled out early. I don't know if he would have been the guy or not.
One more thing from that story before we get to Chris Marler coming up in the next segment. The one more thing brought to you by our friends at the University of Montevallo. If you're looking for one more thing for your son or daughter when it comes to their decision on where to go to college, montevallo.edu. $9 million was money that Kalen DeBoer is making, and that came out this week, $10 million a year. He was basically going to make that at Washington as well. $9 million was the offer back during the season. Jimmy Sexton, I assume, said, don't take it. The Alabama job's going to come open. Then the last offer was $9.6 million, and he's in Tuscaloosa for some loose change in the couch, more than that. It seems like he really wanted this job. And DeBoer is quoted as saying, never thought I would be in the mix for that job, but when he heard the announcement, he knew he wanted that job.
Well, look, much like Michigan, and probably a better example of a team that was really built for the moment was Washington over the last couple of years. And I think Kalen DeBoer is one of these guys, when he got into coaching with Sioux Falls, he was able to dominate at that level for a little bit and win multiple national championships. And for DeBoer, it is about winning championships. And I think he saw what Nick Saban can do. I don't think there's any way he replicates that. I don't think he believes he could replicate that, but he knows he's got an opportunity to come to Tuscaloosa, realistically win championships if he's there long enough. Yep. So I think that was ultimately the goal. I don't think the money, I mean, obviously the money matters to everyone, but we talked to Kalen DeBoer about this. When he got into coaching, what was he making, $20,000, $30,000?
Yeah,
he's coaching.
First job he only got, tell that story, he only got the job because of why?
Yeah, so his roommate had gotten a job at a local high school, and he got another offer that was going to give him full coverage on insurance for his family. So he called up the athletic director and he said, I can't take the job. And the athletic director's like, you're supposed to start Monday. I've got to have a coach. And he said, well, my roommate here kind of wants a job in coaching. So it was a Friday afternoon, gave Kalen DeBoer the phone. They talked for 5 minutes. He shows up and he's working Monday for like $20,000+.
Yeah, that's how he got into coaching.
Yeah. And this is a guy that, again, when he was winning even championships, he talked to us about making sandwiches. He said it wasn't just peanut butter and jelly. I'd throw some meat on there. They got some protein here and there. But I don't think this was a guy. I think a lot of guys are getting into this occupation for the money because the money is massive now. But I don't think that was DeBoer early on.
Yeah, so that makes sense that the money not much different than what he could have made there in Seattle and staying put in Washington.